everyone, and welcome to the fourth feature race of the 2014 Mopar Canadian National Superbike Championship, the Pro Superbike feature event from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, north of Bowmanville, Ontario. This is your series announcer Frank Wood reporting from the track formerly known as Mosport Park. Coverage of this round of the Mopar CSBK National Tour is presented by Magneti Marelli, Dunlop, and Bell Helmets. Hi everyone, and welcome to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Welcome to the second last round of the 2014 Mopar Canadian Superbike National Championships. Frank Wood, your series announcer here, and working alongside Colin Fraser for color commentary. And Colin, we have some miserable conditions here at Mosport, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park.
It's really just about the worst it can be and still go motorcycle racing. Of course, this is a double header, so we have lots of racing here. Unfortunately, our top pro racers, the leading riders in the nation, are faced with a really difficult track. It's actually stopped raining at this point, but it's really, really hard to deal with. And of course, great road course like Mosport, lots of hills, lots of elevation, lots of drainage, makes it super challenging, particularly if it starts raining hard again.
And it's lots of speed, of course, at this racetrack. This is the fastest track that we run on in 2014, and of course at those speeds with admittedly limited traction with the conditions that we have, it could make for a very entertaining race indeed.
So let's run down the grid, because of course, Frank, a lot of the riders have chosen not to start due to the difficult conditions and looking forward to better weather tomorrow. So let's talk about the field.
Yeah, we had 22 entries actually, and only 10 starters have responded to the call on this one, Colin. And starting at the back of the grid will be Ronnie Munro out of Beaverbank, Nova Scotia. He riding for Freedom Cycle and Canadian Kawasaki Motors on the number 26 machine. Daley will start back there as well on the number 116 machine.
And if I can interrupt, we can actually see Daley leading this group up the backstretch, and he had a pretty bad crash yesterday, so it's pretty impressive that he made it to the grid.
Did he ever? He went off at turn 4 yesterday, demolished that ProStar bike, but fortunately he bounced back. He's a hurting puppy, but I think he'll be okay. He's a tough kid. 7-11 Franklin Dominguez, hot off his podium finish at Shubenacadie, will start just in behind Sebastian Tremblay on the 24 machine. And then we'll have Christopher Garvey on the 71. Ross Milson making a return to racing for the first time in a number of years. He'll be riding the number 39 bike, and he will start on row 2. Now, row 1 is kind of interesting, Colin, because we have Frank Trombino, fourth fastest qualifier on the Aprilia. Marcel Irnie is making his first appearance on the tour this year. He's been racing a lot in the States, and come home to race this doubleheader national championship weekend. Jodi Christie was second fastest qualifier in yesterday's qualifying session for the Mopar Superbike race, and he will start second from pole. And Ernie there, not quite sure where he's supposed to go. That spot has been reserved for our fast qualifier on the Rider's Choice bike. That, of course, Matt McBride. And Colin, you know, we've watched this kid race for years. He is brilliant in the rain. He's definitely going to be one of the riders to watch.
Well, and I think he's pretty much the paddock favorite, A, because he was fastest in the dry, B, because he's terrific in the wet, and C, because Christie needs to think about the championship with Jordan Zoke out. Jodi needs to think about the points. So this is a very unusual front row in a good way. Quite a challenge in the dry. What's going to happen in the rain, I really have no idea. And really, Ernie's the wild card, qualifying third fastest in the dry. Hasn't been part of the series for a long time. Much faster on his return. Definitely a factor. And I have no idea if he's ridden a lot in the rain in British Columbia, but you tend to think BC riders are strong in the rain.
You would anticipate that, yeah. Well, it looks like they're just about ready to go here. This will be, again, a 16-lap final, originally scheduled for 22, but again, with conditions prevailing, they've gone to a red flag. Now, I think we've got a problem on the grid, if I'm not mistaken. Trombino had his hand up, and the problem is not on the front row here.
They're looking back at Daley. He's got some kind of issue. It's off camera right now, but you can see that Fred Benjamin, one of our tech staff, has gone back to show that the start is not imminent anymore. The lights are not activated, and everybody's waiting to see what's going on just off frame with Daley. And that was actually Trombino, I think, who let everyone know. He has ridden for the ProStar team, so probably knows some of their staff. So we're kind of on hold to figure out that issue, and I'm not 100% sure what's going on, but obviously, once you've done the warm-up lap, you're gridded up, you really want to get going fast, and you don't want those tires to cool. Even in the wet conditions, you want heat in the tire.
Well, T-Rev has not had a great deal of luck. As we commented, he did have a big unload in 4 yesterday, and struggling with now the rider's looking back to see whether Daley's got going or not. Look at the two cameras sitting on the back of McBride's number 13 bike, and I think Jodi Christie is carrying a camera as well. So that and 4 cameramen around the race course. We're going to have some great footage. For it's 5 cameramen.
6 cameramen.
6 cameramen.
6 cameramen.
You snuck somebody in I didn't know about. So we have 6 cameramen. All angles are covered, you might say, and plus the onboard cameras, and they have been an outstanding success for us, Colin. A number of the fans have commented to me. It looks like we're going on starters orders now. We're getting ready to launch this thing. The lights will all come on, of course, and as they blink off, when the lights all go off, the clutches come out, and they are away and running. Looks like Irnie got away pretty well there, as did McBride. McBride right out of the hole. Look at that. 2-3 bike lengths going down into turn 1, and Frank Trombino tucking in behind him on the 31. So you got the 13 up front right now, and the 31 running in second spot. And they're tagging in good, Colin. They were really spread out on that starting grid, but once they got through turn 1, they grouped up, and now up over the hill into 2.
Really close given the conditions. You'd think they'd leave a little more room. Also interesting, BMW's first and second. We haven't seen that much this year. Look at Irnie showing that kind of European style with his foot down, and Trombino just drives right underneath on that Aprilia.
Actually, that was Irnie coming on the inside of Trombino. It was Trombino playing the late game there. Marcel Irnie has moved up into second spot, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I err here, as we pick up these riders now coming down through turn 4. And they're going to be making their way down into Moss's right now, as a matter of fact. McBride leads the group down into Moss's turn number 5. You're right, Colin. I stand corrected. It is Trombino in second spot, and Irnie sitting in back in third.
Irnie putting his foot down, probably just trying to feel for the traction, be a little secure. Now we go down to the back straight, and normally I'd make some comment about 190 horsepower, but with the traction control and the electronics, the engines are going to be turned down, and the whole key is not to aquaplane, not to spin the tire, try and make it less stressful. 16 laps in the rain here, pretty long race. Look at that.
Up over the hill, McBride leading. Trombino runs in second spot. Standing water might be a bit of an issue in some places. I know this track drains very well, but there are also some standing puddles, and the riders will be well aware of that. They've had a 10-minute warm-up session before we sent them out. That to help them get used to the rain tires and to the surface as well, Colin.
There you can see McBride leading us at the end of the first lap, and I think Milson is up to 5th, which is a superb effort on that older GSXR of his. It's very well set up, but up that high when he hasn't done any other races. So we actually have 2 series rookies for the year, Irnie and Milson, both running very strongly.
And Irnie's been riding all year, of course, down in the States, as we commented, but Milson, I don't believe he's thrown a leg over a motorcycle in anger for a number of years now. But doing a splendid job indeed, running in 5th spot. And McBride's not getting away with this one, Colin. I fully expected McBride to get some distance on this, but it's not happening. As a matter of fact, we've got a good race happening here up front, as Trombino has a look on the inside of turn number 3. In Quebec corner, Trombino's really turning it on there. He pulls up, look like, yes he is, he's right alongside McBride now. They are right side by side as they attack the Continental Bridge and head down into 4. For a moment there, I could only see McBride and Trombino stuck in right behind him here. This is wonderful stuff for the first lap action.
Yeah, and it's good to see Frank. It's been a troubled effort with that Aprilia. He's been fast, but has nothing to show for it, not even a podium. Very frustrating for Frank, and here he is. And of course, not that long ago, in a way, McBride was almost a protege of Frank's. Well, actually pretty long ago, more than 10 years, that they certainly know each other. And look at this Frank on the V4 Aprilia right in the draft of that big BMW.
And Christie, of course, is playing the championship game. I don't anticipate that we're going to see him running up towards the front or making any kind of dices. I think he's going to run a very safe, secure race and bring this thing home and collect some more points. He has a possibility he has a definite possibility of capturing the championship, and maybe even on this day, if he can pull off a miracle, he could wrap up this championship and take it away from Zoke.
Right at the back of that last shot, Frank, Milson was passed by Daley. So Daley moving up, and he's in contention in points, and I think he is now 5th. They have faded back from the leaders, but nonetheless, Daley, after that big crash yesterday in Sportbike qualifying, doing a really good job on his 600 Honda in the Superbike race.
Trombino taking another run at McBride as they go up through 2. Let's have a look at down to the bottom of 2 and see what Trombino can do. They get down there. There's that standing water I was talking about, Colin. They're skirting just on the edge of it. That's treading on thin ice, you might say. Trombino again on the inside of 3. has a look at McBride, doesn't make a move on him. Christie's sitting back there taking in all the action. He's got the best seat in the house for this one.
And it's pretty impressive. McBride is not blocking. He's not... Oh, there goes Frank, but McBride is not trying to hold him up. They're just running the fast line and trying to make hay while the sun shines. Well, it's not shining, but nonetheless, they're trying to get clear of those other guys. And frankly, Christie hanging on the way he is a bit of a surprise.
Trombino got a good pass made there, and he looks like he's got a pretty good lead. Look at him pull away now from McBride. And that's not anticipated. Oh, a little bit of a slip there by Trombino. I was going to comment on that last lap around, Colin. We hadn't seen that very much, where these bikes with these Dunlop rain tires on it seem to be hooking up very well indeed.
And Daley has now bridged the gap, got clear of Milson really quickly, and he is at the back of that lead group on his 600, and that is a surprise. Not that he's fast, but that after the weekend he's had and the problems he's faced, even on the grid at the start, that he's catching up. So he's going to be a story.
Well, remembering, of course, that we talked about the crash that Daley had. Remember, that happened in the dry. Now he's under what could be referred to as almost treacherous conditions, and yet he's still letting it all hang out. Brave kid. Watching for them coming out of turn 4 now on the Continental Bridge here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And up over the back straightaway now. I think we're picking up on Christopher Garvey there in the number 71 machine. It is Garvey on the 71, and if I'm not mistaken, that's the 711 of Franklin Dominguez. That looks like the OCM bike. It is, yeah, Dominguez running in behind Garvey. So you got the 71 and the 711 running in tandem on this one. But oh boy, big unload there. McBride, that was McBride that's gone down. No, say it isn't so, Matt McBride. Oh, goodness gracious. And Colin, that motorcycle flipping over like that is most certainly going to be damaged.
Well, that was strange, too, because he was pretty much out of the turn, putting the power down, the good electronics package on the BMW. So there was probably some standing water there that wasn't there the last time that caught him out. But big surprise, frankly. I didn't see that coming at all. And hard luck because, Matt's overdue for that first win, and a lot of us had him pegged as the guy today in these conditions.
Yeah, especially in the rain. If you're a betting man, that's where I'd be putting my money. Now we have some action happening here, and a challenge coming from behind on Trombino as up the Mario Andretti straightaway they go. And that's a long uphill climb, Colin, that really taxes those motors.
And what we want to talk about is Daley, who has drafted his way into second place. There he is. Well, he got passed by Christie, but that's two Hondas side by side, and that's Daley from the back of the grid after those problems.
Oh, no! Say it isn't so again. Trevor Daley has gone down once more.
And Daley went into the tires there, and you can see he's a little rattled. I don't know what the condition of the bike is, but he looked like he was suddenly, with McBride down, he could be a threat for the win.
Wow. I wonder whether either one of those two riders, or even both of them, can get up and remount. I doubt it very much with McBride, but Daley may have a chance there. If he slid off and he's got the frame protectors on, he may be able to get that Pro Star bike going again. Christie now is chasing Trombino. This is somewhat unexpected as well. I thought Christie would just be cruising around in second spot, keeping his distance, but he looks like he's trying to close up some distance there. He's got his race face on, Colin.
And I have a hunch Irnie in third is just trying to get a hang of the conditions and seeing what the other guys are up to. But Irnie really is still in play here. He's less than 2 seconds behind Christie. There's second place Christie heading through turn 3. You can see the guys put the power on. Normally they'd be sliding and spinning the tire. Now it's a question of how well your electronics are programmed. The guy with the laptop, did he get his job right to make these bikes controllable in these slippery conditions?
Frank Trombino, the warlord, is going to have to use much more care and discretion. You saw him wiggle there coming down into Mosses. Also, you may have noticed, Colin, as he came through too, he skirted right on the edge of that standing water, and that is treading on thin ice. Oh, there's another twitch by Trombino as he shifts up a gear on that Aprilia RSV4, and now looks like Christie. I thought Christie was going to get in behind him, but it's not the case. He's pulling out and staying out of the spray.
Well, I think that it's not so much an overtaking opportunity as a desire not to get completely soaked. And look at Christie, ran the whole way up the back straight, just off the line, and now he's looking on the outside like he wants to try it. And let's have a look and see if Daley's still in the frame. Okay, there's Daley. Wow. So he missed a lap, but his bike is running.
Back and running.
And there goes Irnie in third, so Daley's a lap down. He's probably 10th or 11th.
Well, it's good to see him up and running again. Anyways, he may be able to salvage something out of this weekend. And of course, they've got another Superbike race again tomorrow that we'll be covering here on CSBK.ca TV.
And I don't know if you, sorry to interrupt, Frank, if you caught that. Christie had a big look back to see what was going on. So I think he's weighing his options. How aggressively do you go after Frank? Is this race winnable? Of course, he has to think about the points. Crashing would be catastrophic.
Oh, boy, would it ever. there's got to be a huge amount of pressure on Christie's shoulders, the anticipation now, especially with Zoke being out of it. A lot of people feel that it's being handed to Christie, but that is not the case. Was that McBride's bike still at the side of
Yeah, it's in a bad spot, and I think they'll leave it there until there's a safe interval, as the field starts to open up. Don't forget, in these conditions, the field does spread out much more than is typically the case. So obviously the corner workers in those slippery conditions want to have a safe opportunity to move the motorcycle.
And they have done that. Spread out, I'm talking about, of course, as Trombino and Christie come down into Mosses once more. As we glance up in towards turn 4, our third place challenger on the 174 machine, Marcel Irnie, is quite a distance back. This seems to be a bit of a 2-horse race thus far. And they'll be coming up loppers pretty soon as well, Colin, as we look at them going up the Andretti straightaway and up the hill there. Just as they crest the hill, just before that, we've seen a slower bike, a lapper, going up through there, and they're heading up into 8 and 9, coming up on that lapper, and that is the CKM sponsored number 26 machine of Ronnie Monroe out of Nova Scotia. And Trombino gets by him cleanly with no issues at all. Entering turn 9 now, Christie has gotten by him as well. And Christie sets off in pursuit of Trombino. We'll see whether he desires to make a race of this or play it smart and just
let me help. I think the answer is he desires to make a race of this. I think both those lapped opportunities with Monroe, they were pretty careful. Monroe held his line. Monroe doesn't have much time on this track. He's out there looking for some points, looking for some money, and everybody wants to finish. And particularly when we've had a couple of front runners crash early on, that reminds everybody that the grip is a tricky thing here. And look at this, the double apex downhill blind corner 2. Look at that, Frank right on the edge of that puddle. And here's where McBride went down. We really don't know how that happened. And Christie and Trombino maybe changed their line just a bit to not drive exactly where Matt went.
Rest assured, Matt McBride is one disappointed pony right now after leading that race, and we commented on that boy's skill in the rain. If it was, if they allowed pari-mutuel betting on this, I would have wagered heavily on McBride to win this one, and I'd be out of pocket just now, Colin. Down into Mosses once more. I've been in Shannonville.
Wrong track.
Down into Mosses once more is Frank Trombino and Jodi Christie, and I mentioned Shannonville. These two guys, Christie especially, learned from the Warlord at the Race Super Series down at Shannonville, and he learned well. This time around, it looks like he is trying to pick up a bit of draft, but commenting on that, Colin, you get into that soft air there, you're also into a whole lot of mist.
Well, also, I don't know if you've caught this, Frank, but it is raining quite a bit harder now. It has been really since about the time Daley fell down, and the track's right at that point where it can't handle a lot more water in terms of drainage. So you really are struggling lap to lap. What are the conditions like? It's almost like a motocross where the track's changing a lot from turn to turn. And there it looked like Christie was comfortable. Frank was careful, and Christie backed off. The last thing he wanted to do was clip him from behind. But now it looks like Jodi would like to make a move. He's looking around on the inside. The question is Frank getting aboard? Does he know Jodi's right there? And Frank's a tough guy. He's been doing this a long time. He's not going to look back. He's not going to encourage Christie to give him that kind of hope. And look at this as they head up to the top of that blind hill in 2.
Do you think it was the speed that Trombino was pushing McBride at that perhaps caused Matt to make his mistake right down at the area of the racetrack that we're looking at right now?
Well, until it happened, I really thought that McBride looked the most stable and consistent of the lead 4 or 5. Daley was charging at that point. Milson was still in the picture there. So of the bunch of them, I really thought McBride was by far the safest. So it'll be interesting to see if we catch up later with what that story is. And of course, we're expecting good weather tomorrow. It'll be really nice to get Matt out there. He has a spare bike, but they've been struggling with a lot of minor problems that all kind of pooled up together, and they end up building the backup bike into the race bike. So they have spare parts, but it will be a major job to build something out of all of them.
Well, I can well imagine that Jodi Christie must have had a little chat with John Sherrard before this started the race, but as I watch Jodi out there right now, Colin, I'll tell you right now, he worries me. He's got a national championship possibly in the bag this weekend if he plays it smart, and if he gets into a racing game with Frank Trombino, in my mind, that's not playing it smart, especially at this track under these conditions.
Of course, the John Sherrard you're talking about has been sort of his chassis guru, his setup guy, his crew chief. Accelerated Technologies is John Sherrard's company, so they have a long-standing relationship there. John helps other people at the track, but Christie is his focus at the Nationals. And of course, Trombino has been racing this Aprilia for a year and a half or so, but not at all the rounds and not all the regionals, and has had some difficulties, really kind of bad luck. I don't want to be too corny about it. So that Trombino has been leading a national for this long when he's never even been on the podium at a national. In fact, no Aprilia has ever been on the podium at a national.
I'm not sure we should be talking about this. I've had this backfire on me before. We start talking about somebody, next thing you know, they're on their backside at trackside, and I truly hope that that's not the case in this contest. We've lost enough riders out of this with McBride going down, and then Daley, albeit Daley did get back in the race, but it's certainly taken him out of contention.
Good shot of the Aprilia there. It is an absolutely beautiful motorcycle. I mean, most of these race bikes look good, but that bike stands out. Of course, Aprilia, a dominant performer just a year or two ago in World Superbike. Certainly a good bike. Frank's bike is actually surprisingly stock. It's probably a little down on horsepower to the Top Guns, but
which may be a good thing here.
Well, and it's a very balanced machine. It is capable of very good electronics, although you're only as good as your programmer on the laptop. It's pretty complicated to get the most out of the bike. But Frank really seems to enjoy the bike, and we've seen some great performances. And I say that Christie just about fell, got his foot down. He actually looked back to see if he drove over something. So now Frank has, I don't want to say a safe edge, but a significant edge for the first time.
Big time. Look at that. The distance he's got between himself and Christie. Now is the time for Christie to play it smart. Just settle into a nice, even pace. Make sure he holds position. There's nobody challenging from behind. So if he just keeps Trombino in sight, and as I say, maintain a nice, easy pace. We talked about Trombino's bike, Colin. I couldn't help but note it has a beautiful exhaust note, and an exhaust note that I described as being rather flat. It didn't sound like it's got a whole lot of horsepower.
Well, right now it sounds really flat because of the electronics. And, you know, basically what just happened is Christie had a small moment, wanted to kind of gather himself up, and he's more than 3 seconds back. So suddenly this is not a race. Frank seems to be clear, and Frank hasn't, to me, changed his pace significantly. Very consistent. His lines are good. He's changed it up just a little bit. We haven't seen quite so much drama in terms of tire slippage and whatnot, but his speed in this section in particular is quite impressive. And that gigantic puddle at the bottom of 2, and then whatever happened with McBride right after that, I'm sure everybody's tippy-toeing there at least a little bit.
Yeah, he does toy with that puddle, that's for sure. I can't help but think that the folks at Royal Plumbing, Frank's major sponsors, will be very, very pleased with this. And I know Paul Bastarak is at trackside with him again. That's a team that was together in Frank's heyday, really.
Well, Frank has an incredible amount of experience. I'm pretty sure he's told us he's retired 4 or 5 times. He's terrible at retiring. He's as bad as Michael Taylor, although Michael is at the moment retired. But you know, seeing Frank ride this Aprilia has been terrific. He really handles the bike well. It seems to suit him, and he used to be so famous for big horsepower motorcycles.
Lap traffic coming up here, Colin. Lap traffic. Garvey will be the first one. Trombino just blows right by him going up that straightaway. And that's a powerful motorcycle that Garvey is on as well. I guess Garvey's using a little bit of gentle throttle in that application, but Trombino just blasting right by him on the Aprilia and putting Garvey into a lapped situation. That's most uncomfortable for a rider of that skill and with a motorcycle like that. Christopher Garvey on the 71 machine.
And I think this is Dominguez they're coming up on. Don't forget, he was at the Podium, as you pointed out, our last event. Really strong performance for that team. And I don't think this is an issue of speed. This is an issue of caution.
Yeah, and attrition now. As we commented, we've had 2 riders. Boy, they were running closer. Trombino around the outside, and perhaps taking more chances than he should. And the rain has really increased now, Colin. The visibility is becoming worse and worse as this race goes on.
There you can see Trombino starting to pull away from Dominguez, although to be fair, I think Dominguez has picked up the pace a bit. He may this may be the first time he's been close to somebody and has a little bit more of an idea of what the traction's like. And I can tell you from doing some road racing in the rain, even with these really good rain tires, it's hard to know the limit. And if you get going with somebody and you get a little confidence, pick up a little speed, and sometimes you get more feel out of the bike once you start to push it. And that may be a little bit of what we were seeing with Christie, that he was comfortable. Really nice tight shot there at Moss Corner. Really shows the water, shows that bike. It is gorgeous, even in the wet.
And Trombino getting a little bit of a tail wag. Oh man! Did he ever get a tail wag there? I think when he was shifting down coming into Moss's is what caused the first one that I noticed, the back end kind of wagging like a, and there again another rider coming out, and I think that was Christie coming out of Moss's that we saw twitching the back end on the Honda as well.
Coming off the top of the back straight, this time Frank's kind of cheating towards the middle, and he's probably breathing a little hard, saying, I need to get my pace back, I need to hit my markers, I had a bit of a scary moment, and that honestly is about as close as it can get without going away. And that's a spot in the rain that's really treacherous coming out of Moss 5B and C that in the dry is not a big drama.
With that V4 power, though, and they've got that thing turned down, as you mentioned, flattened out, as I refer to it, that you wouldn't have anticipated them spinning up quite that much. Now on the four-cylinder Japanese-style bikes, of course, with the higher revs. And Trombino has got his hand up in the air. Oh, no, don't tell me he's got trouble calling. What was that all about? What's he signaling there?
I honestly don't know. I wonder almost if he was stretching or his gloves wet. You know, he's trying to get it repositioned on his hand. Don't forget, your left hand, the hand that he took off the bar, is the one that does most of the work in terms of holding on. It may just be strictly uncramping your hand because in the wet and it's pretty cool, chilly there. So it may have just been a hand cramp or trying to avoid a hand cramp. On the other hand, I don't know.
He seems to have slowed up a bit though, Colin. It's so hard to judge because there's nobody out there to compare him with, but compared to his pace coming down into Moss's last time around, he seems a little bit slower, and that may well indeed be a very good thing for the Warlord.
Well, in this section, let's see if he's slower because he needs to slow down just a bit through here.
Now let's see what he does as he heads up onto the Mario Andretti straightaway once more. Dead center in the track on exit and way to rider's right as he makes the climb up the hill and then back into the middle of the racetrack once more.
And you've got, chassis setup choices, tire pressure and whatnot. Of course, these are the deep groove Dunlops made for these wet conditions, and it is possible to alter the traction setup on the dashboard. Now, most riders don't like to do that while they're going. I don't know if Frank's doing that, but there are a lot of things you can consider, as well as just working on your riding, hitting your markers, trying to be smooth. Obviously, smooth in the rain is crucial, and of course, it's interesting. Frank has such a reputation as kind of a horsepower hero on big, old school full-blown superbikes, and here he is in the rain in a difficult condition in a relatively underpowered bike and showing well, although he just missed his marker on the entrance there.
But there was nobody in sight coming in from turn 10 there. He has a full front straightaway lead on this one. This is rather a lonely ride for the Warlord right now as he takes it back up over the hill and into turn 2 once more.
And as I mentioned, Frank, this race was shortened from the dry number of 20 laps to 16. 16 laps in the rain here is pretty long, and it's a test of your concentration.
Trombino now coming up on another slower rider there. I think that might be Tremblay, if I'm not mistaken, on the 24 machine, the kid they call the Shaker, Sebastien Tremblay, who scored his first podium in CSBK competition this year at round 2 at St. Eustache.
Tremblay, sort of underfunded, popular, hard-riding guy, well-liked, certainly deserved that podium just like Dominguez. And I think some people are, pounding it out today, looking forward to drier conditions tomorrow, get some points, make some money, continue to participate. These are the series regulars most of the guys we're seeing, with exceptions such as Milson.
Yes, indeed. Tremblay on that 24 bike, he gets support out of... looks like he's slowing right up. He's got his foot out and pulling over to rider's left, so Tremblay may have run into trouble there. We're going to mention Moto Nation, the company that's behind him, and Laval Moto as well, so he's got some support, but you're right, it is rather a privateer effort and on a relatively tight budget, no doubt. Trombino now bringing it in through 8, stacks it up into 9, and will make his way over towards the front straightaway once more. Meanwhile, we'll pick up on the race action, the riders in behind him very shortly, no doubt, as Trombino brings it now onto the front straightaway. And I've yet to see him look back, Colin.
Well, in my opinion, most good riders don't look back, and I can tell you from my road racing experience that I feel like looking back encourages the person because it means that the person behind me is now in my head. So it's a place like Daytona where you can kind of cheat at the horseshoe and look just a little bit back without them knowing. I try not to look back, and certainly if you pass someone, generally you don't want to look back because it certainly lets them know that you're worried you can't stay in front. But Frank has a lot of racecraft. He's been doing this a long time. He's a natural rider, and I think he's focused on the job at hand. And of course, the concentration and handling this bike in these conditions is immense. It's much harder work than in the dry. I mean, this is a crazy fast place. It's one of the all-time great fast racetracks in the dry. But in the rain, the degree of commitment and precision, and 16 laps, and there you can see Frank still hitting his marks, nice and smooth. And of course, this is where all the fun's been, so let's see how Frank does this time.
Well, he shifts his weight over slightly to the left, as you can see, and starts to wind that throttle on nice and easy, takes it way over to the rider's right, I'm going to have to ask for advice on that one, Colin. Why does he pull so far over to the right there?
Well,
on
I
the
think
exit of
that's
Mosses?
because he's worried about standing water, and I think part of those close calls we've seen, and particularly actually the Christie one, which wasn't Frank, was to do with lane choice and how much is draining. And over the years in the rain, we've seen some big crashes with pro riders in that exact section. And you hate so much to ease off the throttle or feather it or whatever when you're on a straightaway. All your instincts are put on the power. So we're actually had a glimpse there, and that was Irnie and Christie. So I'm not sure, but I think Ernie's in front of Christie now.
I believe he has caught him up, and Irnie was quite a distance back. So again, Christie has backed off his pace. He's riding a championship race. He's riding it smart. We've seen this happen before with Jordan Zoke when he was riding for Kawasaki. He'd come out to the last round and run around in 5th place, and do what you got to do to bring the championship home. Honda's hungry for it. They've had the Sportbike championship now 3 years in a row, and hopefully Christie can claim another one, make it 4 on this weekend. But it's been a while since Honda had the number 1 plate, Colin.
Well, in talking about plates, Zoke was expecting theoretically to take his 10th career national Superbike overall championship this weekend. He was leading in the points, and he had a really good shot at it. BMW are one of the sponsors of this weekend, so it was going to be theoretically a coronation. And he had a fluke accident riding his trials bike, a low-speed, fairly low-risk sport. Badly broke his thumb, was hoping maybe one of his supporters, Dr. Rick Inman, could sort it out. He went to see Inman. There was really nothing that could be done. So the fact that Zoke isn't out, and of course, Zoke can certainly ride in the rain.
Yeah, no question about that. And he can ride this racetrack, too.
Yeah, he has quite a record here. So it's a shame that he's not here, but, these guys are. And right now, it's hard not to be impressed by Frank Trombino. He's had a few close calls, but if you're going to win a race in the rain, a big race, it's there's going to be some drama.
Well, as we glance back down the Mario Andretti straightaway into Mosses, we can just barely see the riders coming out of Mosses as he comes halfway up that straightaway. So this lead is really, really large, and I hesitate to say it, but I've already started. I just hope he can bring it home upright, Colin.
Oh, here we go. Well, that's a good thing to mention because we've got one lap to go.
How quickly those 15 laps have gone by. 4 kilometers now to go for Frank Trombino on the number 31 bike. And there now, finally, you can just pick up some of the riders that are battling it out behind him. I know there's been a lot going on there with Irnie and Christie battling it out, the two of them, and they've come up on a number of lap riders. Milson, Garvey, Dominguez, Ronnie Monroe, of course. All of those riders have presented challenges to the race leaders, and especially when you're hooked up the way Christie and Irnie seem to be hooked up at this point in time, for two of them to get by is a little tougher than what Trombino's running in on this solitary run up front.
Well, a podium for Irnie will be terrific in his return to the series. But, third in qualifying was impressive. If he puts it on the box, or maybe even in second ahead of Christie, or who knows with Frank, we still have more than half a lap to go. But nonetheless, although we haven't seen much of Irnie, it has been... Oh, there we go. We saw them briefly, and Irnie is in second.
Irnie is in second, and Christie's staying right with him as well. I fully expected Christie would just, unless indeed he's just able to keep pace in comfort, but I fully expected Christie to coast back and just bring this thing home. But he's making a race of it.
And there you can see Frank taking that wide line right out to the edge of the track near the guardrail, but that's where the traction is. That's where his comfort is. And look at that.
Wow.
Christie and Irnie side by side.
On there for second spot. Side by side, indeed, coming out of Moss's corner. It's going to be very interesting to see whether our cameras pick these guys up as they come off the back of the Mario. There they are, and they are. It is Christie who has passed Irnie now. Jodi Christie on the 20 bike has passed the 174 of Marcel Irnie as they come in through turn number 8. They'll stack it into 9. I don't think Ernie's got a snowball's chance, and you know where, of catching Jodi Christie. Christie should bring this home in second spot, not counting any chickens just yet because we have a very slippery racetrack. Not too slippery, though, as Trombino was able to pick up the front wheel, and the victory has gone to Trombino. Wow, what a win, Colin.
Well, I'll talk about a breakthrough. This isn't your first podium for Aprilia. It is your first podium. It's their first win, and what a terrific effort, and great for the series, too. Variety is fantastic. It's good to see all the different bikes that have been competitive. BMW, Honda, and now Aprilia have won so far this season, and there you can see Christie and Irnie celebrating in the background.
Quite so, and we've had Kawasaki on the podium a couple of times with Tremblay at St. Eustache. Trombino taking a way wide line this time coming around. And no doubt in a celebratory mood.
Having a little wave there, and of course it's just nice to kind of sit back on the bike and stretch a bit. You've been holding on, you're soaking wet, you're cold, and you've been concentrating hard. So that lap, particularly when you've just won, is a fantastic feeling. Not quite as good as the lap with the flag, but pretty good. There's a classic Frank
Wow,
wheelie, and he's
yeah.
just an artist at that kind of stuff. It comes so naturally to him.
Yeah, survive the race.
First of all, Marcel, a great ride, a smart ride.
Yeah, you know, it was raining out there. I enjoyed it. When I ride in the rain, it's got to be for a race because that's the only time you have fun. We're pretty much like slow motion out there, you know, little jet moto warriors, and great track. I really enjoyed it. Nice set of people. Thanks for the fans and all the workers for coming out and making this possible.
Jodi, congratulations. What a great ride. You ran in third there for a while. We thought you'd want to be safe and secure back in third, but you weren't happy with that. Had to be second, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I felt really comfortable on my Honda. You know, John and Andrew did a great job of setting that thing up for me with the short track time that we had. So I felt really comfortable. I was ready to go out there and battle, but be safe. And I did just that. When it got a little bit too sketchy, I backed off the pace a little bit, and then Marcel caught back up, and we got ourselves into a little battle again, which was fun. So I had a great race.
It was a good race. Matt was out there. You were asking me about Matt. You know, I knew it was going to be a hard one with Matt. I just thought I'd follow him for a while, then try and get by him, and just see what he's doing, where I can benefit from. And just a little mishap on slide that he high-sided, but hats off, Matt's all right, and hats off to Rider's Choice for that as well.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, your podium from round 4. Mopar Canadian Superbike Championships. Marcel Irnie in third, Jodi Christie in second, and Frank Trombino takes victory.